മിസ് ജിതിൻ സാർ എന്നാ പറഞ്ഞ റിപ്പോർട്ടിന്റെ?
സാർ ഒരു റിപ്പോർട്ട് അയച്ചു തരാമെന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു നേരത്തെ ഉള്ളത്. നിങ്ങൾ എനിക്ക് തോന്നുന്നു നേരത്തെ ബാച്ച് ചെയ്തതായിരിക്കും.
അതെയോ? ഓക്കെ മിസ്. ഓക്കെ.
ഇതിപ്പോ ഈ റിപ്പോർട്ട് ഞാൻ അയച്ചത് നോക്കിയിട്ട് നിങ്ങൾക്ക് ചാപ്റ്റേഴ്സ് പ്രിപ്പയർ ചെയ്തുകൂടെ? ഞാൻ ചാപ്റ്റർ ഹെഡിങ്സ് തന്നില്ലേ?
ചാപ്റ്റർ ഹെഡിങ്സിലല്ല മിസ് കൺഫ്യൂഷൻ. ചില സ്ഥലത്തുള്ള ഫോൺസിന്റെ സൈസും ആ അലൈൻമെന്റ് അങ്ങനത്തെ കാര്യങ്ങളിലാ ഡൗട്ട്. വേറെ ചാപ്റ്റേഴ്സിന്റെ ഡൗട്ട് ഒന്നുമില്ല.
അപ്പൊ ചാപ്റ്റേഴ്സ് ഒക്കെ പ്രിപ്പയർ ചെയ്തോളൂ. മറ്റേ ഡൗട്ട്സ്, നിങ്ങൾക്കുള്ള ഡൗട്ട്സ് മാർക്ക് ചെയ്തോ എഴുതി വെച്ചിട്ടോ ഇൻഫോം ചെയ്യാം. അതിനുള്ള റിപ്ലൈ തരാം.
മിസ്സേ, ഇപ്പൊ മിസ് തന്ന അതില് ഓരോ ഹെഡിങ്ങും മാറ്റാണ്. അതായത് സൈസ് ഒക്കെ നല്ല ഡിഫറൻസ് വരുന്നുണ്ട്. നമ്മളെ പഴയതാണെങ്കിൽ എല്ലാത്തിനും ഒരു ഓർഡർ ഉണ്ടാവുന്നു. അതായത് ഒരു ഡിക്ലറേഷൻ
ഉണ്ടോ കയ്യില്?
നമ്മള് സെമിനാർ റിപ്പോർട്ടൊക്കെ വെച്ചത്, സെമിനാർ ഡിസൈൻ എല്ലാം വെച്ചത് പിന്നെ കഴിഞ്ഞ സീനിയേഴ്സിന്റെ ഉണ്ടേനു. നമ്മളെ സീനിയേഴ്സിന്റെ
നമ്മളെ പാസ് ഔട്ട്
അത് നിങ്ങളുടെ കയ്യിലുണ്ടോ?
ഉണ്ട്, ഒരു ബാച്ചിന്റെ ഉണ്ട്.
ഓക്കെ. ഇപ്പൊ ഇതെന്ന് പറയുന്നത് എല്ലാ ഫോണ്ടും എല്ലാം ക്ലിയർ ആയിട്ട് പറയല്ലേ. മെയിൻ ഹെഡിങ് 16, സബ് ഹെഡിങ് 14, അതിലെയും സബ് വരുമ്പം 12 എന്നൊക്കെ അത് ക്ലിയർ ആയിട്ട് പറയുന്നില്ലേ?
മിസ്, പക്ഷെ അത് എല്ലാം ഡിഫറെന്റ് ആയിട്ടില്ല. ഇപ്പൊ ഡിക്ലറേഷന്റെ ഹെഡിങ്ങിന് 13.9, എബ്സ്ട്രാക്റ്റിന് 14, 15.9 അങ്ങനെയൊക്കെയാ വരുന്നത്. ഫുൾ ഡിഫറെന്റ് ആയിട്ടാ ഉള്ളത്. അതാ മിസ് ഒന്നും തിരിയാത്തെ.
ഓക്കെ, ഒരു യൂണിഫോം ഇത് നിങ്ങൾ ഫോളോ ചെയ്താൽ മതി.
നമ്മൾ അങ്ങനെയാണെങ്കിൽ മിസ് നമ്മളെ കഴിഞ്ഞ കൊല്ലത്തെ യൂസ് ചെയ്താ പോരെ?
എനിക്കതൊന്ന് അയച്ചു തരുമോ? എനിക്ക് അതിന്റെ നിങ്ങളുടെ ഇവിടുത്തെ ഫോർമാറ്റ് ഇല്ല.
കഴിഞ്ഞ വർഷം നമ്മള് 16, 14, 12 ആ ഒരു റേഷ്യോ അല്ലേ ചെയ്ത്?
അത് തന്നെ. 16 മെയിൻ ഹെഡിങ്, 14 സബ് ഹെഡിങ്, അതിനകത്ത് 12 അങ്ങനെയല്ലേ ചെയ്തോണ്ടിരിക്കുന്നത്?
അങ്ങനെ ചെയ്തിട്ടുണ്ടായി.
ഓക്കെ, നോക്കാം. ഞാൻ സാറിനോട് ചോദിച്ചിട്ട് പ്രീവിയസ് ഇയർ റിപ്പോർട്ട് ഉണ്ടെങ്കിൽ നിങ്ങൾ അത് ഫോളോ ചെയ്തോളൂ. ഓക്കെ, അപ്പൊ അതിന് ചേഞ്ച് ചെയ്യണ്ട. ഇവിടെ കൊടുത്തിരിക്കുന്ന അതേ ഓർഡറിലങ്ങ് ഫോളോ ചെയ്തോളൂ. ഇതിപ്പോ നോർമലി എല്ലാ കോളേജസിലും കൊടുക്കുന്ന ഈ ഒരു ഫോർമാറ്റ് ആണ് അവൈലബിൾ. അപ്പൊ അതിനനുസരിച്ചാണ് കൊടുത്തിരിക്കുന്നത്. ഹലോ, കേൾക്കാമോ?
കേൾക്കാം.
ഞാൻ ജിതിൻ സാറിനോട് ചോദിക്കാം നേരത്തെ റെക്കോർഡ് എന്താന്ന്. ഹലോ.
മിസ്സേ, ഓക്കെ. നമ്മളെ കയ്യിലുള്ള ഒരു സാമ്പിൾ റിപ്പോർട്ട് മിസ്സിന് ഷെയർ ചെയ്തരാം ഞാൻ വാട്സപ്പില്.
ഓക്കെ, നോക്കട്ടെ. ബാക്കിയെല്ലാം കുഴപ്പമില്ലല്ലോ. നിങ്ങൾക്ക് ഓർഡർ കിട്ടിയില്ലേ? അക്നോളജ്മെന്റ്, ആബ്സ്ട്രാക്ട്, കണ്ടന്റ്സ് ഒക്കെ വെക്കാനുള്ള ഓർഡർ കിട്ടിയില്ലേ അതില്? ഓക്കെ, ഓർഡർ കിട്ടിയെങ്കിൽ നിങ്ങൾ പ്രിപ്പയർ ചെയ്തോളൂ. എന്തെങ്കിലും പ്രശ്നം ഉണ്ടെങ്കിൽ നമുക്ക് നോക്കാം. ഓക്കെ, ഓർഡർ തെറ്റിക്കാതിരിക്കുകയാണ് നോക്കേണ്ടത് മെയിനായിട്ട്. സോ എല്ലാവരും ജോയിൻ ചെയ്തിട്ടുണ്ടോ? ഇല്ലല്ലേ? Okay, can you see my screen? Can you see the screen? Okay. So yesterday we were discussing about distributed embedded systems and networks for distributed embedded systems. And there are three networks. One is I2C bus for distributed embedded system. Then second one is controller area network CAN. And third network that can be used for distributed embedded system is Ethernet. So we have to study in detail about the I2C bus. And I think I started the I2C bus architecture, and I said that there will be masters, there are certain processing elements will be acting as masters and certain processing elements will be acting as slaves. And there can be more than one master or more than one slave. So it is also called a multi-master bus. The I2C bus is also called multi-master, multi-slave bus. And also the packet, the data is transmitted in the form of packets. So it is also a packet switch network. And that is two wired, it is bidirectional, it is synchronous, that is everything happens with a clock tick. And and I think you can see from this architecture that every processing element is connected to both the lines, that is serial data line and serial clock line. So we can consider this bus architecture as a serial communication line. Serial transmission is possible, is only possible with this architecture. Then, yesterday I think we were discussing about the address, isn't it? Do you remember all these? A bus transaction comprises of a series of 1 byte transmissions. A bus transaction, it comprises of a series of 1 byte transmission, and how this transmission occurs, I will explain it once again. See, when a master wants to write to a slave, only masters can initiate a write operation. So, when a master wants to write to a slave, it transmits the slave's address followed by the data to be written to the slave. So, slaves cannot initiate a transfer, only masters can initiate a transfer. So to initiate a transaction, the master will send the address. The address is 7 bits, as we said earlier. The address of the device connected to the I2C bus is 7 bits. So the master will send an address, and along with the address, there will be one more byte reserved, and this byte in the 1 bit reserved, and this bit indicates whether to read or to write from the slave. So when the bit is 0, it indicates that the data that has been sent will have to be written from the slave to the master. And if it is 1, it indicates that the read operation is to be done from the slave to the master. So the address format based on this bit, the operation can be either a read or a write operation. So when the bus is in idle state, both SBL and SCL, they remain high. So this, let us see how a transaction is invoked in this particular bus. When there is no information transmitted in this bus, both these SBL and SCL will remain in high state. And whenever any master wants to transmit a data, this SDL, which is in high state, is transitioned into a low state, indicating that some master wants to transmit data. So whenever any master wants to transmit data, it will change this signal in this line, which is in high state always under idle conditions. It is transition occurs to lower state, and SCL remains high itself. So when a transition is invoked, the 7-bit address is transmitted, and along with the address, the data, the last bit also specifies whether it is a read or a write operation. Now, following this, the data, if it is data that is to be sent to the slave or written to the slave, this bit will be 0, and after transmitting the address, the master will transmit the data in bytes. So here the data, anything that is put into the bus is transmitted in the form of bytes. Am I audible to you? Am I audible to you? Okay. Some work is going on Here nearby, that's why there is disturbance. So when the bus, okay, now this says what the conditions of the bus when a data is being transmitted. When the bus is in idle state, both SDL and SCL will remain high. And a bus transaction, when a bus transaction is initiated, a start signal will be first put into the bus. And when this start signal comes, these are the two changes that happen in the bus. That is, a start signal, when a start signal is received, the SCL will change from its high state to low state. That is, there is a the end of the transition of transmission, after sending all the data, there is an end signal sent on the data line, and at that time this data line, which is in low state during the transmission state, it will go from 0 to its high state, because in ideal condition it remains in high state. So after the data transmission, SDL goes back to its high state, whereas during data transmission, SDL, which is in high state, will come to low state. As long as the transmission occurs, the SDL remains 0, and whenever the transmission has completed, the stop signal is sent to the data line, and when a stop signal is received, this data line transitions from 0 to high. High is the idle state of the SDL. Also, start and stop signals are used for making these transitions, and these start and stop signals, they are often paired. That is, if there is a start, then there should be a stop signal sent. Then a master, it can either write and read from the slave, and this depends on the bit that we had said here. If it is 0, it is writing to the slave. 1, it is reading from the slave. So in that case, if it wants a continuous read and write, that is also possible. That is, after a read operation, if it wants to write something to the slave, then again it will send the start flag, and then the start signal, and then followed by the address for transmission. So sometimes the next data may be to another slave. So a master can send data to multiple slaves, and when after completing the data sent to one particular slave, it has to send the start bit again, and again send the address of the slave to which data is to be read or written. So it can either write or read to the same slave, or it can write or read to another slave. And this is the function of master. And the basic transition graph for this is shown below. That is how the master changes its state during a transition, and that is indicated here using a state transition diagram. So initially, hope you can see this diagram. Can you see this diagram? Okay. So this is the idle state. So state transition diagram consists of states and transition. These rounded rectangles are the states, and these directed lines are the transitions. So a state transition diagram consists of states and transitions. So here we have the initial state, the idle state of the master. The master is in idle state. It is not transmitting any data, and in that case, it is the state which the master maintains is called the idle state. Now, suppose any master, that in this figure we have two masters. One of the master wants to transmit data. What it does is, first, it will send a start signal. A start is sent on the data line, and the start is up, and after sending the start signal, it will just start sending the address of the slave. Now, after transmitting the address, along with the address, I said address is only 7 bits. Along with this address, one more bit will be sent, and that is indicates whether it is a read or a write operation. So after start, it will send the address of the slave, and after send, along with this address, it can have 2 bits. There is a single bit, and this bit can be either 0 or 1. So if it is 0, following the address, if a 0 bit is encountered, then it will go to data write state. That is, data is written from the master to the slave. Slaves cannot do any transaction, so it is a master that can do operations. So data is written from the master to the slave. And if there are many bytes, all those bytes are written in a repeated manner. That is, one after the other, the entire data byte will be written from the master to the slave. Now, when this write operation completes, the master can either go back to its idle state when a stop signal is encountered, or if it wants to continue its operation, that is, if it wants to write again or if it wants to read some data again, it will again send a start signal followed by the address of the slave to which it needs to write data or from which it needs to read data. So after one operation is completed, it can either send a start and an address for the next operation to be initiated, and along with the address, it can be either a 0 or a 1 can be sent. If it is 0, again it will come back and write some data to the slave, and if it is 1, again it will go to read state. Bit 1 indicates read operation, and so this will read data from the slave to the master. And that is why it is written get data. The master will get data from the slave. And if there are many bytes, it will happen in a loop, and it will, after getting all the data bytes, this master, either it can stop and go to its idle state. When a stop signal is encountered, it can either go to idle state, or it can, if it wants to continue some another read or another write operation, again it can send a start signal and send the address and perform this operation, either a read operation or a write or a read operation, and that depends on whether the last bit is 0 or 1. And so this is the summary of how the master works in an I2C bus, the state transition diagram for I2C bus. Hello, can you hear me? Hello. Did you understand the working of that master? Do you want me to explain it once again? Okay. So I'll explain once again. See, this is the state transition diagram of the master that is connected in the I2C bus. We have several masters, several slaves, and this master, it can either read data from the slave or it can write data into the slave. So to perform this operation, that is, master wants to read data or it can write data into any of the slaves, either master 1 or master 2 can do, anyone. Anyway, the procedure is the same. So if it wants to read or write data into any particular slave, the operation that the states that it passes through is shown as a state transition diagram. That is, initially the master is in idle state. That is, it is not transmitting any data. So when it is in idle state, it need not send any information. But if it wants to transmit or if it wants to send data to a particular slave, it has to first send a start signal, and then after sending the start signal, it has to send the address of the slave to which the data is to be read, or data is to be written, or from which the data is to be read. So as I said earlier, I2C bus, the standard address size is 7 bits. And the 8th bit, the last bit, it can be either a 0 or a 1. So anyway, 1 byte of data is transmitted. Out of that 1 byte, the first 7 bits indicate the address of the slave, and the last bit indicates the operation to be done. If it is 0, it is a write operation, that is a write from the master to the slave. And if it is 1, it is a read operation, that is a read data from the slave. So, or get data from the slave. So after the start signal, the master will start sending its the address of the slave. And this address has the last bit of the address will be a 0 or a 1. If it is 0, then it indicates data write. If it is 1, then indicates data read operation. That is, data write means writing data to the slave. Read operation means getting data from the slave to the master. So the address is 0. If the address is followed by 0, then what it does is it will write data into the slave. Suppose there are many bytes to be written, then it happens in a loop, and the master will send all the bytes continuously to the slave, and slave will write the data. And after completing all the data, sending all the data, the next step is the master either it can continue another read or another write. So if it wants to continue another read or another write, it has to again send the start bit, like what it has done here. Again, from after completing the write operation, it has to send the start bit and the start signal, and start signal will be followed by the address of the slave to which the data is to be read, is to be written, or from which data is to be read. Now again, following the address, there can be either 2 bits, either 0 or 1. If it is 1, then again the master can initiate a read operation, and that is, it can get data from the slave. And after reading all the data, it can either go to stop. Once all the functionalities have been completed, it can either go to stop, send the stop signal, and go back to idle state. Here also, after writing data, if it does not have any other operation to be performed, if it is not going to initiate another read or another write, again it will send a stop and it can go back to idle state. From these 2 states, it can go back to idle state. Also, it can, if it wants to send or read or write more data, it can give a start and then perform the operation address, send the address again and do the same operation. So this is a typical bus transition in an I2C bus. And the address is as shown below. How the address is transmitted onto the bus. The same process here, we have a start flag or a start signal. So before sending the address, before sending the 7-bit address, there would be a start flag signal followed by the 7-bit address. After getting the 7-bit address, there can be a 0 or a 1 bit which indicates the operation to be done. If it is 0, then it indicates write operation, and then followed by that bit, bytes of data will be transmitted. Here it shows 2 bytes of data, and that data will be written from the master to the slave. And finally, if all data have been written, the last one will be a signal to show the end of transmission, and this will be a stop flag, and that is indicated by a stop flag. So start is indicated by S and stop is indicated by P. This P, stop P, and start is indicated by S. So this is one transition, one transmission, how the data has been, how the data is written. Now, to read a data, again, the master has to send a start followed by the 7-bit address, and if it is a read operation, this bit should be 1. And here it is just reading 1 byte of data from the slave. So read indicates data read, data is, the master reads data from the slave. And after reading 1 byte, again it sends the stop signal, and with that the communication between master and slave stops. Now, another example shown here, the third example is, after sending a start, the master sends a 7-bit address followed by a 0, which indicates a write operation, and then it will send 1 byte of data to be written to the slave. Again, it is not stopping. It is again giving another start signal, and again it is sending another 7-bit address followed by a 1, and this 1 indicates read from the slave. So this address to which the slave is, which the master sends, this particular slave, the data is read from this particular slave whose address is mentioned here. And then the data, after reading the data from the slave, here also shows just 1 byte. You can show any number of bytes. Here this example shows only 1 byte. And finally, after that, the stop flag is given. And that indicates end of the transaction. So So this shows three examples. The first example is just a write operation. Second example is only a read operation. And third example shows a write followed by a read operation. So all these are possible in I2C bus. That is, the master can either write data to a slave and stop, or it can read data from a slave and stop, or it can write data first, then followed by a write, it can initiate a read from a slave and then stop. So all these operations are possible in I2C bus. So that's what is written here in the first example. Master writes 2 bytes. Here I have shown data twice. So master writes 2 bytes to the slave whose address is mentioned here. And in the second example, the master requests a read. 1 byte of data is read from the slave whose address is mentioned here. And in the third, the master writes 1 byte first. 1 byte is written to the slave whose address is mentioned here. And after that, it reads, the master reads 1 byte of data from the slave whose address is mentioned here. Is it clear? Is it clear to you? Hello, any doubts? Okay, so hope you understood that state transition diagram and also the address, how the addresses can be sent from master to the slave. Operations can be done. Two operations are the basically done operations, either a read operation or it can do a write operation. So this is about I2C bus. So in this section in distributed networks, I have discussed two important questions. Again, there are certain sections like the bus topology and all, which you had studied earlier. So I will cover it after completing the important sections. Okay. Is it clear? I'm first going through the important sections. Is it okay? So all these questions are important. So I'm first going through the important questions, and then at the end I will be going through the questions which are the sections which you had studied earlier. So that is about networks for distributed embedded systems. The next section of this module is about embedded product development cycle, EDLC. So I'll be starting that section now. Before that, if you have any doubt, just ask. Embedded product development life cycle. This is your textbook, okay? Have you seen your text? EDLC. This is chapter 15 of Shibu KV textbook. Are you referring to the textbooks? I think I had shared one folder which contains all these materials, all the 6 modules, along with the text, the chapters in the text. Hello? So shall I go to EDLC now? If you have any doubt in the previous section, you can ask. Shall I move to EDLC? Hello? Okay. So This section is very easy to study for you because you might have studied many models in software engineering, many software development models. Can you name one or two of them? Anyone? Not one. You can. I think you can name a lot. 3 or 4. Software development life cycles. Do you remember? Hello? Okay, Shabna, very good. Waterfall model, spiral model, prototyping model, etc. You might have studied all those models in software engineering. So here we are going to study another model for embedded product development. Since embedded product is a combination of both hardware and software, we have to use an approach that suits this development. And for waterfall and all waterfall model, there we are mainly concerned with software development only. But here, since it has both hardware and software integrated together, we have to design, or the phases should cover, it will be a little more in detail than the waterfall model or spiral model. But anyway, we can adopt those models here also. And that is the next section. So we can use waterfall model, spiral model, etc. for embedded product development also. But for embedded product, there are specific phases which should be considered. And that is outlined in this model, that is Embedded Product Development Lifecycle Model, EDLC. Embedded Product Development Lifecycle, or EDLC. So what is EDLC? If you are asked a question, what is EDLC? Then this is the answer, the definition of EDLC. The first paragraph is just the definition of EDLC. That is, it is an analysis, design, implementation based standard problem solving approach. So in waterfall model also, you have you have different phases. The first phase is usually feasibility study, then followed by analysis, then design, coding and testing. Isn't it? Do you remember the phases? Analysis, design, coding, testing, and maintenance. So here also, this approach, it also follows an analysis, design, this coding and testing, etc. They come under implementation phase. So EDLC is also an analysis, design, implementation based standard problem solving approach. That is, if I want to develop a product, I develop the product based on these 3 steps. That is, and I first analyze how to do the product, then I design the product, and then finally I implement the product. And finally, I solve my problem of developing the product. My problem is to develop a product, and that problem is solved when I follow these 3 steps. So this EDLC is an analysis, design, implementation based standard problem solving approach for embedded product development. This this life cycle is for embedded products. Now, what are the importance of EDLC? So just like other models, here EDLC also is essential for understanding the scope and complexity of the work. That is what we do it in feasibility study. You have to understand the scope, complexity of the work involved. Then it defines the interactions and activities among various group of a product development sector. There are various groups involved, and so it defines the interactions and activities to be done, especially during project management, during system design, development. These are all carried out by different teams. System testing will be done by another team. Then all these different groups, there should be an interaction, and there should be specific activities carried out by these teams. And that also is defined by EDLC. All these are defined by EDLC. Then the last importance is that the standards imposed by EDLC, it makes the product developer independent. That is, if we are following a single standard, then any developer can come and study this, who follows this standard will be able to understand how the work is in progress. So it makes it developer independent. So if there are standards adopted, then there will be, all these standards will be known to all the developers, and they will follow the standard. And it will be easy if a particular standard is followed for development. Otherwise, if people are going to follow their own ways, then it will be difficult for other developers to understand. So this standard, once we are following a particular standard, it is easy, it becomes developer independent, and it provides uniformity in the development approach. So these are the advantages of following EDLC. Now, objectives of EDLC. This is a short question. What are the objectives of EDLC? Okay. This is an important question. Did you hear the question? Did you hear the question which I said now? Yes, what was the question? Objectives of EDLC. Okay. So, let us see the three main objectives of EDLC. There are three main objectives. The first one, the three primary objectives of EDLC. The first is to ensure that high quality products are delivered to the end user. To ensure high quality products, since embedded products are designed for a large commercial market, it is very important that the developers should ensure its quality, otherwise the product will fail in the market. So it should ensure that high quality products are delivered to end users. So quality in an embedded product, to measure the quality of an embedded product, the developers take into consideration this factor, and that is return on investment, ROI. So to measure the quality of an embedded product in the market, the developers usually depend on a factor called the return on investment, or ROI. And if this return on investment, it indicates the profit that the product gains in the market based on the investment. You invest a lot of money, and the developers are checking whether investing that much money is worth. And so to find out if whether it is worth, they should find out how much products have been sold in the market. So how much how much profit they have got in return. And so that is this measurement, how much amount is invested, how much profit is returned, and that factor is known as return on investment. So EDLC must ensure that the development of the product has taken into consideration the return on investment. That is, it should get good profit once it is launched in the market. Then, when compared to the investment, they should get a good profit. Then, second objective is risk minimization and defect prevention in product development through project management. So, if the project is managed properly, the product is developed properly, this will reduce risk, and it will reduce the defects in the product. So this can be done if a proper life cycle model or a proper specific stages are being used to develop the product. So project management is essential for predictability, coordination, and risk minimization. So project management activities you might have studied. This is a vast subject, project management. So the managers will analyze how the product is, whether the product is a profit or a loss, and also to develop the product within a specific time. The time to market should be reduced, so there should be coordination among the team members, and also the project managers should consider the risk factors that arise in a project, and they should be able to predict the risks that can arise, and they should minimize risk. What is risk? Can you define risk? Now, what is risk? Have you heard of risk? Have you heard of risk? What is risk? Did you study it in software engineering? Did you study risk in software engineering? Yes. What is risk? What is the definition of risk? So risk is any adverse situation that can, if I say the exact definition, you may not understand. Risk is any adverse situation that can hinder the progress of a project. So this comes in project management. It is any adverse situation that can hinder. Hinder means that can block the progress of a project. Once a project is in progress and we are going to develop a project, a product, during its development phases, the developers have to consider what are the adverse situations that can cause a block to the development of the project. So that is known as a hindrance. A hindrance can occur to the project development, and what are the risks that can cause this hindrance? Is it clear? So risk is any adverse situation that can hinder the progress of a project. Is it clear to you? Is the definition clear to you? Hello? Okay, I think it's time. Okay. Did you hear the definition? Nobody heard? Hello? Okay, we'll continue with the next class, in the next class. But no one is responding to this question. Ashwati, did you hear that definition?
മിസ്സേ ഞാൻ കേട്ടില്ല, അപ്പത്തേക്കും കട്ടായി പോയി.
Okay. So I was just saying the definition of risk. That is, risk is any adverse situation that can hinder the progress of a project. That's the standard definition of risk. Okay, just study those definitions because somewhere in interviews and all, they might ask these questions. So, say your attendance. Number 1. Okay. Number 1. Abhilash. Absent. He is there in this meet. Abhilash. Absent. Then Abhinav. Abhinav present. Ansab.
Is present.
Abhilash, okay. Abhilash present. Ansab present. Ansab undo.
Yes.
Ansab undo papa.
Yes.
Okay. Then Anushri present. Then Arjun. Ashwin. Atul. Okay, Atul. Pabina. Father. Jason. Nitilaj. Mridula. Jason. Number 18. Okay. 20. 22. 23. 24. 26. 27. 28. 29. 30. 31. 32, 33, and number 3. Okay, so all are present today. Okay, thank you.